Good morning. Welcome to Brave Indigenous Conversations with Joan Jack. And this morning I have my birth sister, my only birth sister, Annette ALIX ROUSSIN, with me as my guest. And I'm going to begin as usual by reading the piece of writing called Brave Space. Together we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. And that was written by Mickey Scott B. Jones. So good morning, Mark. It's so amazing to have you with me. Oh, I used your nickname. Sorry.
That's okay. I
I'd
think
like
I write. I think I talk about that.
I'd like to invite you, like I do all of my guests, to introduce yourself.
Well, good morning. My name, like it says there, is Annette ALIX ROUSSIN, and I do have a lifelong nickname, Makaki, that was given to me when I was born, apparently. And I'm happy to be here. I feel I'm emotional already because makes me want to cry
Aw.
to do this with you.
Mm. Mm. Breathing.
Yeah, just breathe. And thank you for inviting me to be on your podcast today because I think why we decided to do this was I have written a book
Oh.
and I just published it on Amazon on August 30th. And this is the mock-up copy that says not for resale. Right now, this was the first one I got to do the last check on, edits that need to be made. And so I think some of that is what we're going to be talking about today. But I am originally from Barons River First Nation, and I'm your sister, your only bio sister, and I'm a middle child. And yeah, I think that's enough for now.
Okay, so what's the title of your book? Read it out to us.
Okay. My book is titled I Am My Culture, My Memoir of Self-Determination. It's a journal for well-being.
Mm. So, can you share with us why you wrote a book?
Well, yeah, I when I was about five in not five, when I was in grade five in grade school in Barons, I started to try to write a book,
Oh, wow.
and I had I bet you about six chapters written, and it was a sci-fi book, and so my teacher then supported that process with me, and then somewhere I got sidetracked and didn't finish it and didn't and I don't even really all I remember it was a sci-fi book and I was this person trying to be in outer space and try to leave where I was and connecting with aliens, etc., other beings. And then after that happened, I didn't write again. But what did happen in my life was I became a journaler. Like I started journaling in my life, and every day I would wake up. Probably it started in 1996 when I got into recovery, and I started writing every day. Every day I would write something because journaling just became such a support for me because I had so many thoughts in my head and feelings and emotions.
Hmm.
And then continue forward with life. I was finishing my master's at Canadian Mental Health Association, and my work when I got into doing work as a social worker, as a clinical social worker, all my university studies and all my work focused on our Indigenous mental health and well-being. That's sort of the area I ended up working in, practicing in. So when I was finishing my master's, I had done this master's work there with some women, some participants. And as I was doing the work, it dawned on me or the idea came to me
Mm,
that I need to create a space. I need to do something with this work I've done with my life and with this research I've collected to give myself space for my voice.
mm,
Because one of the issues I've always had is uh, struggling with being seen and not heard,
mm.
and wanting to write a book. I never let go of that dream of writing a book.
Mm,
So that message came to me. My spirit gave me this idea and said, take the research and share your story.
wow.
I'm like, oh, okay. So that's just a little snippet of it. There's more to it, but does that
Wow.
answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, no, no. Can you just so for those of you listening, because Annette is my sister, I got to see that mock-up copy and I was blown out of the water with the formatting. Like I'm so amazed with what you've created. Like I can
Mhm.
hardly wait to get mine. I'm supposed to get my copy today from Kathy. So I'm driving into Winnipeg to get my own copy. Because mine aren't going to be here till the 23rd, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So um talk about the formatting. Like I'm so maybe can I share my experience of the formatting, just looking at it for 5 minutes and
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
so I had the book and I was looking through it. um I was so impressed that you have a bib because I it's a long time ago, like 30 years since I've been in university. But I remember when I was in university writing papers, there was like nothing. And I don't enjoy research that much. I mean, I'll do the odd Google search, but that's about it. I'm not the kind of person that's going to go, on a go down that rabbit hole. And so what you've done is in the area of mental health, particularly as it relates to Indigenous peoples. How many pages is that bibliography of the book? I think it's three, eh?
Yeah, I have
Just flipping to the back of the book.
one, two, three, 3.5 pages of
Yeah.
articles.
Sight reading that you've
Yeah,
done.
yeah. Reading that I've done. In the notes, I have notes I speak to that sort of combine those articles, and I speak to them specifically
Mm,
on how that research relates to
yeah.
my life, our some of our lives as Indigenous peoples.
So I was really impacted by that because I thought of all of the students that you're going to help, because they're in university, they're young, maybe they're in their 20s, I don't know, they're doing a social work degree, doing an arts degree, whatever they're doing. Even like Laura, our niece Laura is in university doing psychology studies. This book has this massive, like I think 3.5 pages of relevant citations that a student doesn't have to go and look at and read and think, is this relevant? Is this relevant?
Mhm, mhm,
You've eliminated all that work for people and like lifted them up for
mhm,
and for non-indigenous people too, who are
mhm,
looking for other things to read.
mhm,
So many people are like, oh, white people that I meet, they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Well, they can buy your book and work through it, which we'll talk about. And then there's that whole bibliography
mhm,
there that
mhm.
that struck me. That was the first thing.
Yeah.
Was there anything you wanted to say about that before we move on?
Well, what I found too, learning to be a student and learning to research, was that, so for example, if you take one of these articles and you research and find it, then it connects you to a whole other world of more articles.
Wow, eh?
So I
Yeah.
learned that trick somewhere along the line, and it's very helpful because some of these are older now too, and there's more research that has happened since this
Wow.
has happened.
Mm,
So it just leads you on a path to more relevant research on your topic.
amazing.
What I did want to do and have done with my book is I tried to use 98% Indigenous
Wow.
research articles,
Amazing.
authors,
Yes.
and that was intentional to
Nice.
create space for us. That
I
look
love
at
it.
look at all the people who've come before me,
Yeah.
and have done all this work. And then I come and I'm trying to do my work and I see, so much here.
Yeah.
Dr. Michael Hart.
Yeah.
I went his writing. He's a proficient writer, and he taught me so much. And some of his little book he made, it's just worn out from me using it and learning from it, and then yeah, so it's
Awesome.
Kermeyer, different researchers that you just get attached to and really like their work. So
Wow, that's so I think it's really a big thing you've done to help, everyone who wants to find more and read more. Before I comment on the next thing that struck me, Hank is asking, is that Mucky your sister, Joan? Yeah, we started out the podcast saying, so just a little bit more about my biological family. We're from Barons River. We might talk. We have an hour, so we'll talk more about things later. But I'm the oldest, and then Muck is middle, and then our brother Dennis is the youngest. So there's three of us in the family. So the next thing that struck me is, now with the advent of the smartphone and stuff and audiobooks that aren't cassettes, I don't actually read. I don't actually hold a book much anymore.
mm,
But when I saw your book and it had those little triangle things that pull out, things of note, like note this to the reader. I love that technique. Like
mm,
when I've looked at books before that show this, because well, not, I was going to say I'm lazy. I'm not lazy. Maybe I'm ADHD. I don't know. I want it and I want it now, and so it's a way for people to just sort of get a feeling of what is in there. If you keep reading, you're gonna hear and learn more about this. So why did you choose that technique? And maybe hold up a page for those watching on video on YouTube. They can for those of you listening on Spotify, you can also go to my YouTube channel. See, look where she's bolded it out there. And so is that text different than in the main text, or is it a is it different information, or is it a repeat of what's on the page?
Joan, it's been so long since it's such a long journey, and there's so many things firing at once in your mind and in your spirit when you're doing this work. Some of them might be different, and some might be
A
in the
repeat.
text and
Yeah.
and
Highlight,
replicated.
like a highlight, yeah,
So I
to
think
highlight.
it's an and.
Okay,
You
okay.
know.
Well, life is an and, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Well, part of the design, the way I designed it too, and it's maybe down the road, there might be a way to put it on Audible or, to figure that out. But one choice was to make it paperback right now
Mm.
because it is a book where you read, and then there are journal spaces
Well,
available
that's the next
too.
thing I was gonna talk about.
Yeah.
Who does that? There are many Indigenous people who've written books now, but your book, you wanna talk about those spaces? I'd like
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, this was something in what spirit gave to me was to write and to create the journal space for us from and for other non-indigenous people to read and learn about us, so that there's prompts and there's space for you to journal. Because
Mm.
I found over my time reading a book, ideas and thoughts will come to me, and then I have to have a separate notepad but
Yeah.
this is your book to work with when you read it and to note what your thoughts and feelings are. And so when I went to try and seek out other publishers, I was told no. I
Mm.
was told no by the the mainstream ways of publishing. You
Mm.
either write your book, your memoir, or you create a journal.
Mm.
You can't put the two together. You
Mm.
can't.
Mm.
It's not done.
Mm.
So I said, okay, thank you very much. I'll be going on my path. and and I couldn't let the idea go.
Ah.
I couldn't let the idea go. And so Victoria Johnson, from this Celestial Media and Publications, she loved my idea too and totally supported me. And
Mm.
and Victoria Johnson is our Canadian teacher trainer for Heal Your Life, Louise Hayes Heal Your Life training and teachings. And it was her, I went to her write your own book retreat. I went to her and I did that for myself. So she supported the, like, I showed her what I was doing and she was like, oh my God, Annette, this is like so amazing. This is so different. And I think even her too, or she too, said, well, you have to do one or the other. And I'm like, no. And so we just, so she started supporting my idea and I just kept going with it.
Nice.
And so this is how it's become created in this way and how I've published on Amazon, because now you can self-publish on Amazon. Plus
So,
I have Victoria's support from her expertise, right?
So cool. And you also, the space for the reader is not limited to a journaling space. There's also space for doodlers. Like
Yes.
my daughter Amelia, our daughter Amelia, she's a doodler. So, and that's left a lot of space in the book for those of you listening on Spotify, where not a lot, there are spaces where if you want to doodle, you're welcome to engage with the book. So that's amazing too.
And that came from just near the end. Spirit again. I got the idea from my spirit in the discussion with my team. There was this blank space. And I said, you know what? I want to put something where let's just, write, like draw, doodle, whatever you need to do. This is your book. And then I said it's also honors our ancestors, our people that went to residential school, or our parents when they were in school, or people who were in school who got rapped on the knuckles, who got hurt for writing in books, you know. And so we can do that now.
That's so beautiful.
You know, and then it's just, and then I can remember the first time I got to write in my book was at university, because I was trained too as a little girl, like, don't write on your books, don't mark them up, like don't, you know. So your creativity is just stifled.
Yes.
You know, so I remember being in university, that privilege of getting there and being there, and the prof's like, write in the sidebars, you know, take notes, highlight. And I'm like, really?
You paid for the book, yeah.
Yeah, it's your book. You paid for it, yeah. So that's another reason that's there.
Oh, so beautiful. So could you read through the table of contents and then speak to any of the items that you'd like to?
Well, it's quite a long table of contents.
We've still got 45 minutes.
Okay. Okay. So I have the preface, introduction, East, the beginning, and there I have who I am.
Why is East the beginning for you?
I put, what did I put? Why did I say that?
Yeah.
It's hard to remember everything.
I think East is the beginning probably because for Anishinaabe, you know,
the sun rises.
In the east.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to read a little bit here. East, the beginning. I have chosen to name the direction of the east as the beginning of my story. The sun rises in the east every morning, and I wake up knowing it is there, whether I see it or not. I've learned to wake up each morning and begin my day knowing I am living in my medicine wheel of life, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual parts of me in my life. So that's the beginning.
Beautiful.
So then I talk seeking belonging, South cultural reclamation, understanding and self-determination, overcoming fear and feelings of lingering inadequacy, reframing.
Let's talk about that a bit. Go there and read a little bit about lingering.
Okay. This piece. I take you now, so this overcoming fear and feelings of lingering inadequacy. I take you now to parts of my story that discuss the emotion of fear. I put the emotion of fear here in my story because I have a lot of fear to overcome, which can be connected to my past and my internalized cultural oppression. My fears often fueled my addiction. I think many people feel all forms of fear and often don't discuss it. I
Mm.
learned to mask my fear, stuff my fear, and let it paralyze me in some instances from moving forward with dreams and goals I wanted to pursue in my life.
Mm.
So I put fear there because just what I've said, like fear is a normal emotion, but it can just, it has kept me stuck, or it can keep people stuck, and you just get really caught up in it.
Yeah.
And it had stopped me from trying many things in my life,
Yeah.
for not being brave and just feeling the fear and doing it anyways.
Yeah. Mm.
So then you know, I share pieces of what that was like for me, or can be like for me. And the
Mm.
fear can come up when you're doing something you do all the time.
Yeah.
Just all of a sudden it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
What else?
What's the next thing in the
Okay.
table of contents?
Then I go back to healing ceremonies. I speak to a few of the healing ceremonies. And then West, becoming balanced.
Mm.
So the East, South, West, and North, I use sort of a medicine wheel framework
Yeah.
uh, to locate myself in the book. West, becoming balanced, relationships and connectedness,
Mm.
perception, abandonment, loneliness, and sorrow, alcohol, substance abuse and workaholism,
Mm.
understanding and transition,
Mm.
intergenerational oppression and collective grief,
Mm-hmm.
interpersonal decolonization,
Mm.
seeing and being
Ah,
between.
interpersonal decolonization.
Okay, let's go there.
This is so
And because this is my mock-up, this is one of the things you have to do. Like all these sticky notes are for where everything was out of line in the mock-up. So I had to find all that, and we had to redo it
Uh,
to get things to line up. The concept of decolonization is not a new term, as it has its root in the political and social sciences and Indigenous realms, but I first heard of it in academia. I've been learning about decolonization for the last several decades. I used the term decolonization to assist me with my personal healing, to help me change my ways of thinking, and to support my self-determination. I feel strong now, and I'm grateful I've found answers that make sense for me. So
hmm.
that means you learn about decolonization, or it's quite common now, you hear the word, but
Mhm.
not everybody uses it, every day in our conversations.
Mm.
So the concept was taught to me in academia, and then I realized that I'm a real colonized person. I've been colonized.
Mm.
We all live in colonization, and
Mm.
we've all been colonized to some extent. So
Mhm.
the decolonization is learning about my own culture and my indigeneity,
Awesome.
so that's what I
Which
speak.
I don't know if you had this experience because we've never talked about it really, I don't think. But leaving Barons River, like I left Barons when I was 12 turning 13 because I was a year ahead. I started grade 1 when I was 4 turning 5. So I was the youngest one in the class and a year ahead. And I came out to Winnipeg and I didn't even know I was an Indian. I didn't even know
Mhm.
because everybody in Barons is Indigenous, like primarily. Like there's maybe even today less than 40 non-Indigenous people in our community, maybe
Mhm.
50. And so we're the majority. And I mean, it's so complicated, but
Yeah.
I didn't even realize I was Indigenous. I had no clue because our community is still, and I mean absolutely no offense. I love everybody in Barons River. I'm from Barons River. I love Barons River. But everybody in this context, in the context of colonization, is at the very beginning of the journey of decolonization. The consciousness that we are doing what we are doing today because someone else trained us to do that,
Mm-hmm.
not because it's our own choice.
Mm-hmm.
As Indigenous person or people,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe our community is just beginning to ask that question: Is this what we want to do? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
so, how was it for? Did you have that same thing when you left home?
Oh, I write about it in here. I
Okay.
yeah, I share some stories and I write about mine was internalized cultural oppression. Like I was
Mm,
so confused
mm,
about who am I?
mm.
Where do I belong? You know? And I talk about it in my book.
Nice. So
It's
brave.
yeah, it's very yeah, and I, and learning and it is complex and it's such a challenge to, which stories do I want to say out loud and put in here,
Yeah,
like keeping in mind to not, like it's always not to not offend, to not hurt anybody, but
yeah,
to still speak your truth and how you saw it and how it occurred for me.
yeah.
So yeah, so there's some of that. It's in there.
Okay,
Yeah,
intense.
yeah,
That just,
yeah, and then I even since this has been published, the family that have purchased it and are saying they're going to read it, I've said, I think I write here trigger warning, but I want to stop learning. I want to start learning to use a different word for that. Another sort of respectful word could be you might become activated
mm,
instead of triggered. You might
yeah,
become emotionally activated,
emotionally activated. Yeah.
to get away from to to learn
Negativity, right?
nonviolent language, right? To start.
Right.
So I've tried to get to let people know that family that you might and yourself. I said that to you, like, because
Mhm.
yeah, because it can happen, and I shared that with my son.
Yeah,
You know,
'cause this is your
so
story.
people are going to
So
read it.
what happens next in the table of contents
Okay,
after?
then it's seeing and being between two worlds.
Mm,
And that's there I talk about, I often feel like I'm living in two different worlds. There's
mm,
and many worlds, because there's, like, say for at home, when you go to be at home on the res, that's a world.
yeah,
When I sit on a board and go to a board meeting with all settler people and we're discussing things for Canadian Mental Health Association, that's another world.
yeah,
There, and just uh, learning to go to ceremony, that's another world.
yeah.
So there's just moving and being in those two worlds, our Indigenous world and
I
our
find it really,
colonized world.
oh, sorry. I find it still a struggle, like, as a lawyer. We meet with the firm I'm with, we meet every Wednesday, and there is about a dozen lawyers on this Zoom call yesterday. And I wasn't, uh, I wasn't acknowledged, or I wasn't called upon in the way I thought I should have been. And it's so hard for me not to go right away to, like, is this misogyny or is this racism, systemic racism? Like, it's just like, and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm missing the whole discussion because manage my feelings here. Like, it's really tough,
Yeah,
really a challenge,
yeah, yeah.
when I get emotionally activated. Yeah.
I
Anyway,
agree. I'm the same way.
yeah,
To to not personalize
yeah,
every experience yet. Well, it is personal to me. I'm experiencing it.
exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah,
managing our thoughts and
yeah,
emotions.
yeah.
It's a full-time job.
Being alive is a full-time job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is wonderful.
yeah,
Okay, so then north, I am home. North, I'm sort of, I feel like and I think in my age, I'm 60 now. I'm
Mm,
coming into the north of being older and feeling as calm as I can on a daily basis, and containing myself, holding space for myself. So I have connections to ceremony, community, and traditional cultural practices, diagnosing and healing in Indigenous context.
wow.
Healing deeper means loving and accepting myself.
Mm,
And then I talk about my spiritual bundle, what I
mm,
use today for my
mm,
spirituality
mm,
and implicit cultural values.
mm.
And then I have balance. I am home. I am my culture, notes, bibliography, appendix, and then about me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
What does the
So
About Me section say?
about me
Yeah, it must be not that long.
or
Read it.
about the author?
Read it.
What did we say about me?
I don't know.
Where is that?
Who
Oh,
am I? Who am I?
okay. What did I say? I said my name. I hold a Master of Social Work from the University of Manitoba, and has spent her career working with others in both the health and education sectors with a focus on mental health and well-being. Annette is a licensed Heal Your Life teacher and has been certified with the Coach U Life Coach Core Essentials program. Annette is of Ojibwe descent and is a registered citizen of Miwi-Siping Barons River First Nation, Treaty 5 in
Mm,
Manitoba. Annette brings to her relationships her understanding of the core values from her Indigenous culture of love, respect, courage, honesty, wisdom, humility, and truth.
mm,
Annette believes each person has their own journey to walk to find self-love, peace, and balance in their lives. And it is by doing this inner work and self-development that
mm,
one can find what they need to break through to new possibilities and adventures.
mm, mm.
Each
Beautiful.
one of us must find the way in this life journey. And Annette loves to be a witness, a safe space, a mentor, and supporter for those who are seeking their own truth and balance
Mm,
in their life.
mm. I had another idea. Can you flip to, you had, I think in there, like Dr. Cook wrote something about the book.
Oh, right.
Read
Okay.
those. Read those.
Yeah, so these endorsements, when you, oh, that's our brother trying to,
Yo, oh, I told him we were doing a
he's trying to
podcast.
FaceTime us.
Oh, is he?
Oh, Dennis, I'm in a podcast with Joan.
Right, he said.
I love that. That would have been cool if we.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the process, since I published this and have written it too, I've had people message me like, I want to write my own book too, and
Mm.
can you give me any tips, or so absolutely I messaged back like whatever I've learned I can share and you know share. So part of the process was you write your book and then you need somebody to do a beta read.
Beta read.
A beta read it's called, and you sort of give them 4 questions, and it's not to critique you, it's just to read your book and answer. I forget what the 4 questions are, I have them somewhere, but and then they respond, and then they endorse your book.
Okay.
So these are the 3 I picked and put in the book. So
Okay.
this book was amazing to me. It catches your attention from the first page and captures your thinking in ways you don't normally think. I can well imagine that if you're seeking a memoir that supports journaling and self-healing, this book would be so available and reaffirming. As a
Mm.
result, once I started, I didn't stop, and then I came back to it and did it again. And
Mm.
that's Dr. Catherine Cook, Vice President, Indigenous, University of Manitoba.
Awesome. Dr. Cook's amazing.
Yeah, I just learned so much from her. Then the second one, this is an act of courage, courage to own your story and to situate your story within the framework of time and history. This work is not easy. It will take many steps, and you'll need to visit and revisit parts of yourself. It is not quickly done, but it's worth it. It is a gift you make to yourself and to your circle of caring. This
Mm.
is an act of generosity by Annette to give you milestones on her journey to guide you.
Mm.
Remember to make room for this work to grow into the fabric of your life, become what the ancestors' dream for you.
Mm.
Aho, Louis Soren, Red Buffalo Man.
Mm. Who is
And then
he? I don't know him. Who?
Louis Soren, I've worked with him years ago in when Aboriginal health, Indigenous health was called Aboriginal health,
Yeah, yeah.
and he was part of our team there.
Mm.
And I forget what role he had, but him and I have stayed connected. You know how well, once we're connected, and
Yeah.
over the years our paths have crossed here and there. And
Awesome.
it's amazing too how the endorsements I have for this book are all people. Um, well, 2/3 of them are people I worked in Aboriginal health with, and then another one, the last one I'm going to read, is a person who works in health.
Mm.
So it's interesting how it's about health,
Nice.
and then and now it's holistic health, and I'm
Right.
like, it all comes together. It's so
Beautiful.
spiritual. I used to have what I call the typical or common view of Indigenous peoples and how they see life. In my mind, I could not understand why they did not simply move on. After all, residential schools were over years ago. I also used to believe it was wrong for my generation to continue to pay for the sins of my forefathers.
Mm.
Thanks to Annette, I now have a new pair of glasses through which I see these things.
Hmm.
I understand historical and intergenerational trauma are not just catchphrases, but
Hmm.
are very real and run deep and strong in Indigenous cultures. One cannot do things differently if they do not know there is a different way to do things.
Hmm.
And that's Judy McFarland, Administrative Assistant, St. Boniface Hospital.
Wow.
Yeah. So now Judy and I have a relationship for when I started doing my master's. I I'm not a proficient writer. I can't stand grammar, and I'm being polite saying that. I always struggled with it in school and in grade school and in high school, in university. And so when I got to my master's level, I had a bit of I saved some of my finances. I used some of my finances to pay for some help with editing.
Mm.
And writing is a skill. Like you have you have to learn how to become a better writer,
Mm.
unless you've just been given that gift, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So Judy and I got to know each other. She was my editor for some of my work
Mm.
I did there. And then when people are reading what you're writing, you cannot help but learn and engage with what you're reading and
Yeah.
helping with.
Yeah.
So Judy started having her own healing experience
That's awesome.
with my papers.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So,
great. Huh.
yeah, so that's awesome.
Well, let's just make sure we are clear about the point that your book is intended for human beings.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so this is about your humanity in the context of being an Indigenous woman. You identify as a woman,
Yeah.
Indigenous and Anishinaabe, like
Yeah.
an Indigenous woman. But, and not but, and um, it's for everyone.
Mhm.
Like that last testimonial, like a non-Indigenous woman was hired as your editor and realized that she could grow in her view
Yes.
of how she sees us.
Yeah.
For non-Indigenous people out there who are looking for, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to help. One of the ways I believe that non-Indigenous people can help us is by continuing to grow themselves and
Mhm.
about our experiences, period.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
that's it, you know?
Mhm.
And so this will be a great tool for non-Indigenous people as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, the, and then in the book too, like one of the critiques of it was, could you put more detail of your traumatic experiences in there?
Hmm.
You know, that you need more. And I said I could, but I'm not going to.
Hmm.
That's not the purpose of this.
Right.
And so what I loved about becoming an author is it's your book, your story. And as I did it, I started getting very strong and firm of what was going to work for me and what wasn't.
Awesome.
And I just loved
So
that.
talk about that because, like, I'm going to be, well, I'm always honest, unfortunately, it gets me
Yeah.
in lots of trouble. But I actually don't read many books written by Indigenous people that describe their traumatic events because I am vicariously impacted,
Hmm.
and it's not something I like. My husband has written a book that will be coming out in the next 6 months, and I read one part of it, and I was crying for like 2 weeks. It's like, you know,
Hmm.
I um yeah. So talk about that. Why did you choose not to do that?
Well, one of the reasons was that I wanted it to be, because I want to stick to the idea I had to honor
Mm,
myself and my
mm,
spirit and what I felt called to do,
mm,
and to respect others, that my world is very small,
mm,
so if I shared something that happened to me in a real traumatic way, there would be no disguise, like there would be no
yeah, yeah,
disguising, even
yeah,
if I created a different context, or
yeah,
when people know you, they know you, they know, so I, for safety and respect for myself and others, was one
yeah,
reason. And then I just said that I respect that other authors needed to do
yeah,
that
yeah,
and share their story their way, and I respect that
yeah,
that's how they choose to do
yeah,
it. And I read a lot of them, as I was over the years too. But I wanted this to be a tool or a space for someone's healing. That
mm,
I share little bits of stories that caused me pain, but what
mhm,
was acceptable to me, and
mhm.
then I didn't want to re-traumatize myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Which, even in doing this project and writing this book, I did have to go for counseling sessions,
mm,
because as you're trying to write and decide what to put there, it does bring up a
mm,
lot of stuff, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
So I wanted to create a space where somebody might identify and connect with the what I'm saying. They can journal their own personal
yeah,
pain or healing story, or
yeah,
and do what they need to do with that.
mhm,
So that's what's different. And then part of it too is that, again, to not uh, reactivate my own self
yeah,
and to not come undone,
yeah,
is is the reality that, how do I say that? Like, it's to not sort of make it as a whole story about just pain. And
mm.
I don't want to minimize pain. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I get it. I think, Anishinaabe, like for us, my understanding of our teachings is it all flows back to independent Disney, like I'm responsible for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what you're saying is that you've taken responsibility for yourself. And when we do that, those choices are ours. They don't belong to anyone else. And so I too am not saying that anything someone may have written is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, in being responsible for myself, where I'm at in my healing journey, I can't read those really tough stories. There's a whole genre of teaching around uncomfortable truth. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we
Mm-hmm.
need to face uncomfortable truths, and where I'm at in my own healing journey is not strong enough in some cases. I just get too I come, like you said, undone,
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
to say that that shouldn't be written, that somebody else comes undone and that's what they needed to do was come
That's right.
undone. Who
Yeah.
knows? It's not my
Yeah.
business. Independent
That's right.
Disney, I'm responsible for myself. That's
right.
it, you know?
Yeah.
So I
And,
think it's lovely. I think it's
yeah.
yeah,
And I
really
think I
good.
think what I don't want to lose. I know if I don't say this now, I'll be like, oh, that was my main point of doing all this.
Yeah.
My main point of doing this work and creating this is to learn to love myself more deeply. Each
Mm,
one of us to learn to love ourselves more deeply.
damn.
And that's how I had to go and well, actually, you were the first person in my life that taught me about Louise Hay when I
Mhm.
was 20. So
Mhm.
you would have been about 22 or near 22, and I'm making up that you could see in me that didn't I didn't feel good about myself. I
Mhm.
struggled. I was more depressive. I had lack of confidence. Like I just had all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I remember you teaching me about, hey, Muck, I learned about this woman, Louise Hay,
Mhm.
this old white lady that's, helping people learn how to love themselves.
Yeah.
And so I remember learning about that. And then, then I learned about it and I learned, so I write about some of that in there. There's so much in there. So then, fast forward many years, I I wanted to things had happened in my life that had really hurt me.
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh, I'm still not loving myself enough.
Manny.
Oh, it's tough." So then I wanted to get involved with Louise Hay again. So then I was like, when I can, I want to go and learn about that training and start doing that work. And so it worked out that I was able to do that. And I Googled Louise Hay teachings because there was these big conferences happening in the
Yeah.
States,
Yeah.
but I wasn't too keen on going down there to do it. So I wondered if there was anybody in Canada, and
Mm.
that's how I met Victoria. So here she turned out to be the Canadian teacher trainer for Heal Your Life in Canada. So I
Mm.
Googled her, I messaged her, and I'm still healing on trust issues. So like, are you for real? Are you a real person?
Yeah.
So that relationship started, and she was a real person. And then I went and I did that training,
Yeah.
and then that's how I became And then from there, well, I want to love myself more as an Indigenous person,
Mm.
and I think we all need to we need to love ourselves because we've been hurt and we have so much to overcome,
Yeah.
and so that's how this came.
Nice.
So there's more to come from that because I think, yeah. And that's why some of the little boxes are there in the book too, because they're reminders of, we need
Mm.
here, think about this. Like we're brown, we're beautiful, we're there's so many strengths and good things about us.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
and that excites me because
Yeah.
I came from being sad, suicidal, um, no self-love, no self-esteem, to optimistic, have a spiritual bundle that helps me when I delve back into those other spaces there, to um, to making this and sharing no, 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 enough negativity. Like,
Yeah.
let's be loud and proud and 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 feel joyful, like strong, free,
Free. Free. Yeah.
like you say.
Free.
And then yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited.
Well, I'm so excited. And so our time is almost up, but
Mm.
I know, right? It flies. And so I'd like to give you the opportunity to talk about, well, I'd like to hear you talk more about the Heal Your Life um, stuff that you do. What is that?
Mhm.
Because you've got your website there, foreverevolving.ca is
Yeah.
Annette's website for those of you on Spotify. It's foreverevolving.ca. And
Okay,
so what is that?
drink water here.
Sure.
So now that I've written this book, my book, the Heal Your Life Experience, the 2-day workshop, is a workshop that's been designed on Louise Hay's teachings of how to learn yourself more. and and so you go through a process of looking at different aspects of your life. And over 2 days, you go into a healing space to look at it's inner child work. We all
Mm,
have an inner child in us.
mm,
It's about those teachings. And some of us need to learn how to reparent. We need to learn how to reparent ourselves.
mhm,
Or we want to forgive, but we can't. We can't stop forgetting. Like we just learn in 2 days where you really focus on yourself, and
mm,
your goal is to be open to loving yourself more. And
mhm,
so at the end of that workshop, after 2 days, you have an opportunity uh, to go in and look at what you need to look at that time and space.
mhm.
And near the end of it, you start writing your new story, creating a new story for
Wow.
yourself.
Huh.
So then you leave with a new vision, mission, statement for yourself of this new story you want to sort of work on manifesting in your
Wow.
life. Now that I've written my book, I'd love to do that training in combination with, you could come to that training and or that workshop, and then if you're Indigenous or non-Indigenous and connect to this, you could get my book and take it away and do that work too with
Mhm.
it. So yeah, so it's
So is
pretty.
that 2-day workshop? So not just anybody can do that. People need to be certified, like you went and
Mhm,
complete all the requirements to
mhm,
be able to say that you are a certified Louise Hay Heal Your Life coach.
mhm.
And so is this a workshop that you would do with groups of people or what?
Yes, yeah, and like right now my website is sort of sitting there, and you could reach me if you wanted to talk to me about facilitating that, depending on your schedule and how many people and my schedule. And yes, it could be for, I could do it, say six, and I'd like to be non-gender specific too, right? Like male, female, however you identify.
Mhm.
Um, it could be for a group of 6 friends
Mm,
or 6 or 8 friends. A magic number for me when I work with others is like 10 to 12 people.
mm.
You know, I like working with smaller crowds and
Yeah,
smaller numbers, right?
yeah.
So they could decide, hey, we want to do this. Would you come and facilitate this for
Mm,
us? That type
okay,
of thing.
okay.
Um,
Wow.
I did one in Selkirk. There was, I think, 8. You
Mm,
know, and so yeah, it just depends.
very nice.
I love men. Love to see men and youth do it.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah.
So that's really good. I'm really glad we've taken the time to do this.
Mhm.
I also wanted you to. I'm just rambling here. Who cares? It's my podcast. It's
Yeah, I love it. I love that you have a podcast. I'm so proud of you.
so I wanted you to talk a tiny bit about the subject of your master's because I didn't go past law school. I didn't do a master's or a PhD. So what was your master's thesis or something? Like what do they call that?
Well, you have a choice. You have an option of doing a thesis, and that's writing. Writing and doing some research and writing on a specific topic.
Okay.
And so that's sort of the thesis format.
Yeah.
Or there's a practicum format.
Okay.
And what I did was, it took me a lot. I was 7 years doing this over life. And I have a funny story where, at first I wanted to do a thesis, but then I was scared to write. So then I'm like, okay, I'll do a practicum. I can do a practicum. Well, whether you do a practicum or a thesis, you're still writing a huge document, research and writing,
Yeah. Yeah.
so halfway through my master's, I saw one of my profs in the hallway, and I said, I think I was in like my 4.5 year mark, 5 year, because you have 7 years to do it. I said to her, I've changed my mind. I'd like to switch to a thesis because I was in a practicum,
Okay.
the practicum stream. She's like, oh my God, Annette, there's no time for that now. Like she just jumped all over me. She's like, no, finish the path you're on, like, okay. So I did a practicum, and that's where you design a project or a program,
Mm-hmm.
and you do a practicum on it. So that's what I did. I designed a culturally appropriate group for persons who self-identified as Indigenous that were supporting people living with diagnosed or undiagnosed mental illness. So it
Wow.
was for people who supported
Hmm.
family members or friends.
Hmm.
And so that's what I did. So I had to design the group and I had to deliver it for 6 weeks, videotape it. You get videotaped. You go and you meet with your advisor and they take you through what went, what worked, what didn't, what you need to do, not do. I had a clinical advisor and she would be there and we would talk about things. And I explained some of that all in here. I write
Oh,
about that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
What
and
was
my
the
elder
bottom
came.
line? Like, what was the bottom line? Like, what did you figure out?
Bottom line was, it's hard, it's a big one to answer. Bottom line is there's a need for this kind of support, and so much is like I finished my master's in 2017.
Yeah.
So much to me now has happened in our Indigenous world and in ceremony and supports and organizations. Like so much is going on now.
Mm.
Great, good things are happening.
Mm.
Where what I did in 2017, their organizations actually have these services up and running
Ah.
in many of them.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting.
And so people are able to access that. Youth are able to access that,
Hmm.
those services and supports.
Hmm.
So bottom line is people feel isolated and alone. And
Hmm.
when we can come in a space where we can identify as Indigenous and use some of the traditional ways like the smudging, the sharing circle, the sharing and caring with one another, it helps us heal. We
Mm.
feel more supported and not alone, and we heal.
Nice.
Because it's stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
Stressful.
And there's no support. I know that
Hmm.
first
Hmm.
lived experience with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 3 minutes.
Wow.
What do you want to say in closing?
I want to say Kichimigwech for you doing your podcast and being strong and brave for us
Mm.
and creating these spaces and for inviting me on.
Mm.
I'd like to say if anybody is interested, go on Amazon and purchase a copy, whether you're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, male, female, however you identify. There's so much more to talk about. There's so much to try and, get a book finished and published. But yeah, grab a copy and be brave and do some of looking within and loving yourself more because
Wow.
life just keeps getting better,
Mm.
you
It
know,
does.
with that. Yeah,
Awesome.
we're here for a reason,
Hmm.
not just a season or,
Mhm.
we're here for a reason. So I'm hoping that this will be one of my main reasons. I feel really good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Miigwech.
Anyway.
Okay, as I've said, I have some regular listeners, and so Brave Indigenous Conversations is all about the earrings too.
Oh,
So
right.
I know I had these special ordered. I don't know if you can see them. Uh,
Beautiful.
I think the woman I saw them inside the Deadly Cookums and Aunties, a group I started in 2020. We have over 25,000 members now. It's a private group for Indigenous grandmothers and aunties. Anyway, so I saw a woman had posted these in red, and because I'm a lawyer and the legal community, and we conform out of respect, to spaces we're in. You don't go to a sweat lodge, whatever. You get what I'm saying. So I wanted her to be wearing black.
Hmm.
But I can't remember the woman's name because I only talked to her. So if she sees this or anybody knows who she is, I apologize for forgetting your name. But I love your earrings and I wear them a lot. And I'd love to give you credit. I know
Hmm.
she, I know she's a deadly cookum.
Oh, and
Definitely.
as for closing,
Yeah.
this drum on the back here
Yeah.
is our drum our dad made.
Oh, bring it. Can you bring it closer?
Oh.
Oh, hi, 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 hi. Mano, mano. Aw.
So he made that hand drum for
Mm,
us.
Yeah.
And then our mom, I said she's bought the book, and I said, Mom, I talk a lot about our relationship in there, you and I want to, in case you're activated, you know. And she said, it's okay. She said, I understand because I'm just journaling about my own parents.
And she's
And
like,
she's 83. I was like, that's so cool.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
And this Indigos
uh-huh.
McKay,
Yeah,
is that how I say his name?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his art.
Okay.
That's our cousin who travels in Europe
Yeah. He's
teaching
so
and
cool.
helping
Gotta get
people
him on here.
heal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we
We're
follow him. He's
yeah,
amazing too.
trying to convince Nidra to come on too.
Yeah, come on, Nidra. It's your turn.
Okay, well, I'm going to end the broadcast and then you and I will say goodbye privately. Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Everyone,
thanks.
thanks for listening and sharing. Please share this because my goal, move over Joe Rogan and buy my sister's book, I Am My Culture. Find it on Amazon. Anyway,